I forgot to mention last week on the graph of the displacement to waterline length ratio, I was saying that as you go lower it's better, but can you go too low? Well, yes you can. It's possible to get a boat like this in carbon around 5 or 6 tons, but is it going to be a world cruiser? Probably not. Look, carbon is very strong. It's stronger than aluminium, but it's not tough. It won't absorb punishment, especially under point load, and it tends to shatter. I'll show you some pictures here. Whereas aluminium, it is tough. I mean, if you hit, look at this bow. If you hit anything with this bow, it probably just scratch the paint. The keel's top and bottom measurements are 125mm deep by 20mm shell plate, and the corner thickness is more than 250mm by 20mm shell plate. That is one wicked keel. So if you hit anything with that, you're probably just going to scratch the paint. If you get between the frames, you might dent it and you can just bog it up, no problem. If you really did a number on it and you rammed into a wharf at 10 knots, aluminium tends to crumple. So you won't get a hole, it'll just crumple. And that's the advantage of it. It's so tough. The thickness here in small boats is a fraction of what we have as shell plate on our large catamarans, but it demonstrates how the metal behaves, unlike what we see here in ordinary fiberglass. There is virtually no toughness here with fiberglass at all when it hits something floating in the water. If these pictures don't turn you off fiberglass, then I don't know what will. Remember, most catamarans are made of fiberglass. Very few are made of carbon fibre, and in any case, look what happens to carbon. It shatters. And that's why there's a whole bunch of people building these boats now in aluminium, because it's light and it's durable and it's tough. Now, one of the comments asked me to put the Portofino on the displacement to waterline length graph, and I thought, well, why not? Let's take a look. Now, physics and maths do not lie, people. This is the graph from last week, and here are the Portofinos added. I'm not going to say anything about it. I think the numbers say enough. Then I got another email about this boat, the Doodles boat. They said, please take a look. Now, in the Doodles email, it was quoted, Island Spirit already has a reputation as a fast, seaworthy boat. What a load of bullshit. But wait, there's more. They also supply some performance graphs. No data though. I wonder why. Sailing performance 76%? What the hell is that? Is this some kind of made up formula? Where's the formula? Where's the reference data? But it's 76%, people. I think they're making this all up. 12.2 knots of boat speed? Maybe if it was on the back of a truck or it fell off a cliff. Bruce number of 1.3? Maybe it was evaluated by a different Bruce, like Bruce down at the fish market. And it's out of 100. Sounds about right. And finally, check out the displacement to waterline length. It's almost a racing boat. What a whole lot of rubbish. I think they're relying on the old adage that if you keep telling people something is true, then eventually they'll start believing it. Hang on. Did you know Sailing into Freedom is the best damn sailing YouTube channel out there? And we make a ton of money and we have no money worries at all. Nope, doesn't work. Do you remember these 3 ratios from last week that can give you an indication of boat performance? Well, let's check out ratio 1 this week. So this week we're going to be looking at the sail area to displacement ratio. What's this mean? Well, you've heard of horsepower in a car. So if you get a massive engine and you put in a very light car, that's going to have a good ratio. Same thing here. If you've got a big sail plan and you've got a lightweight boat, well, you're going to have a good ratio. But it's a bit tricky. Traditionally, the sail area was the actual mainsail area plus the 100% four-peak triangular area, so when you compared boats, you knew it was from the same basis. But sometimes now, the boat manufacturers are loading up the sail area to make it seem their boats are better than they really are. Here is an example of me analysing some HH44 data a couple of years ago. The HH44 is quoted as having almost 29 on the graph, while its bigger sister, the HH50, was quoted as being 23.83. This is really suspicious. Its quoted sail area is actually greater than the bigger sister, the HH50. Now, the HH44 is 2 metres smaller and the mast is 4 metres shorter, and yet the sail area is bigger? Sounds like the laws of maths and physics have gone out the window. So I wrote them another email and I got the sail plan, and here it is. If we take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, we can see something called an overlapping solent. Now a solent is 100% jib, and the reason why they call it a solent is because it's named after a windy area between Great Britain and the Isle of Wight, the Solent. And they prefer not to use genoas, they prefer to use the smaller 100% jib, hence it's called the solent. Now I don't know, I've never heard of the term overlapping solent, I don't know why you just don't call it a genoa. If we add up all the sail areas, we get 125.29, which corresponds to the sail area on sailboatdata.com to 1 decimal place. It's interesting to note that in the additional notes, the term overlapping has been left out. If you were looking at these numbers in good faith, you'd actually get a higher sail area to displacement ratio. It's certainly not 28.73. I mean, overlapping solent, genoa, I've put it back to 100% four-peak triangular area, and this is what it is. This is a big difference from what they originally claimed up here. I asked James from Sailing Zingaro from that previous podcast, why would they do this?
To sell them.
Smokes and mirrors, people.
It doesn't matter afterwards. Like, oh, guys, look, no one's going to even say anything.
The moral of the story is you ought to check this data out for yourself. After all, the boat manufacturers themselves supply the data to sailboatdata.com. So, well, they're after selling their own boats, aren't they? Now back to the sail area to displacement graph. This is the one I published about 2 years ago, and here is Delos 2.0 on the right and the Odisea 48 near the top. And now we add the Portofinos. I should point out that the higher you go up on the graph, the more of a performance boat it will likely be. Seems like they are heavily into the dark side, with the 47 lucky to be on the graph. So what does all of this mean? Well, I think Delos again is right on the border. Now, given just that information, I'd be going, remember last week we had the displacement to waterline length ratio is also borderline. I would think it's getting a bit heavy, that boat. But I just happen to be told that Delos is having a cutter rig. If that's the case, they're going to have plenty of sail area. In my opinion, I think their boat could be lighter. It doesn't need to be that heavy. Aluminium is an excellent material, and structurally, if you create it right with stringers, frames and bulkheads, it is a plenty strong material, much better than fiberglass and carbon fibre. People such as myself, Peter Wormwood, Locke Crowther, Chris White, James from Zingaro, De Villiers, Daz from Dazcat, we're of the opinion that catamarans ought to be light. Do some research, look these guys up, read about them, and work it out for yourself. The Gofundme campaign is in its 19th week, and we are about 60% of our way to our goal. So who do we have going up onto the column of heroes this week? We have Captain Asparagus for the 9th time on the GoFundMe campaign, and he finally goes up onto the Champions column of the Column of Heroes. We also have Lance Marriott, who also goes up onto the Champions column of the Column of Heroes. And a belated thank you to Mark Dennis, who, without his help, we would not be filming today because he supplied the GoPros and Insta360 cameras. So Mark Dennis also goes on to the Champions column of the Column of Heroes. And we have Mark Lapierre, long-time PayPal supporter, Kickstarter supporter, and he now goes on to the Champions column of the Column of Heroes. And finally, John Miller, mentioned again, who is already on the Column of Heroes. Now, who do we have drawn up onto the boat? We have Justin Webb, Wayne Parsons for the 2nd time, Peter Van Dyson for the 3rd time, Phil Craddock for the 5th time, Jonas Shelve for the 2nd time, Richard Kohut, Brad Matheson for the 2nd time, and Matthias Becker. Top stuff, guys. Thank you for supporting the Elcano World Challenge. Now, I don't mean to show any cleavage, people, but I don't know if you can see it, but it's just dripping off me. This happens continually, day in, day out. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like, I'm used to, you know, paradise climates and hot climates, but this is, but look at on my arm, look, it's dripping. Look, see the drip? I think I drink probably about 10 litres a day, and I'm not actually doing work, I'm just wandering around. Now, when I say I'm not doing work, I'm up and down these things like an old Chinaman. I don't think I'm supposed to say that, but it's Australian culture, people. It's what my uncle used to say. So, I'm only just doing it for him. I'm not being inappropriate, I'm just remembering the good old days. See these tack welds every 30 millimeters or so? It's very necessary to have these when we do the very long weld runs on the inside. In fact, 2 weld runs go on the inside. While on the first inside weld run, if these tacks are not spaced frequently enough, then as the weld progresses along the inside, the 2 shell plates could break apart. So we need these tacks very close together. And now he is doing the second weld run. Look at how beautiful that weld is. There are still comments and emails coming to me about how some people are feeling very safe in their very heavy, sluggish lagoons and similar heavy boats in bad weather. If you're mistaking this sluggishness for safety, then you are sadly confused. A lighter boat can always be slowed down. To heave to is one way, a forgotten art in my opinion, with most not knowing what to do or how to do it. And yes, you can heave to in catamarans. Well, at least you can in the more sportier catamarans with dagger boards. To tell you the truth, I am unsure if you can even heave to in the heavy catamarans in the traditional sense, that is at 45 degrees to the wind to make it comfortable. I suspect the combination of fat, inefficient hulls, high boom, high freeboard, high windage and ridiculously high mast could make it tricky to get away from going beam on to the seas, and that is a very uncomfortable position. How else can you slow down a livelier catamaran? You can stream warps, tow a drogue or use a Jordan series drogue which can be adjusted according to your wants. But if you need to, can you speed up a big heavy catamaran of the likes we see today? No. With the fat inefficient hulls and all the other negatives mentioned previously, do you have any other option other than going with the storm? No. You are simply at the mercy of the weather while it lasts. And God help you when you have no sea room left. You know my position, but don't just listen to me, or as some do, ignore me. I urge you to research, read a lot, talk to a lot of catamaran designers, and ask them what is their primary consideration when building a catamaran. They will all say the same thing: to keep the weight down. Even the designers who are forced to build ever bigger and heavier floating palaces know this to be true, and will tell you that. But they are forced by the manufacturers to give the customer what he wants. And yes, that is a massive floating house on the water with plenty of room and storage and at least 4 places to sit down between the aft bedroom and the forward bathroom. I mean, have we become so unfit that we need another couch to break down the 10-metre journey from bedroom to bathroom? Come on people, that is just plain silliness. If you want to live in a house, then live in a house on land. But to live on the water, you need a healthy respect for the sea, you need a vessel that can sail and handle the conditions, and unfortunately, houses do not sail well, nor handle bad conditions. Unfortunately, we have seen so many large, lumbering, heavy catamarans in the market today that to most people, it really has become normal. And now we have the moon yachts and island spirit. I reckon I would be hard-pressed to do anything resembling sailing in over 30 knots in either of these floating houseboats. And if you can't sail when you're at sea, then you might be in a spot of trouble.